When you're out enjoying a walk through the woods and looking for different fungi, including mushrooms and some related fungi, it's always nice to remember that you'll find an awful lot of these along the path that you're walking, as well as off the path underneath certain trees or under certain situations where it might be a little bit more moist. Sometimes it's very interesting to observe that a lot of fungi will occur right on the edge of a path, and that seems to be the situation where there perhaps is a little bit better moisture relationships there, where the rain that perhaps has fallen on the open part of the path has moved down through the soil to the edge, and we often find a lot of different fungi occurring right along the edge of a path through a wood such as we see here. And in fact, if we walk up here and look down a little bit more closely, we'll see some puffball down here, and this is pretty common, and especially in the fall of the year. And here are two that are very common in our flora here. They're not quite mature yet. When they become mature, there'll be a small opening occur at the top of the fruiting body that you see here, and this will allow the spores then to be dispersed. They're almost always wind disseminated as a result of perhaps raindrops hitting them or animals hitting them. And probably as you were growing up as a youngster, you would grab these things and squeeze them, and the spores would come flying out. Let's take a look at one of these on the inside. And one thing to remember as you are collecting any mushroom or related fungus, even like this puffball here, is to make sure you get the entire fruiting body. So make sure that you get underneath it with the appropriate instrument. And here you can see that we got the entire puffball. And I'm going to cut this one in half to show you what it looks like on the interior. But before we do that, notice the spine-like structures that are all over the surface of this. This turns out to be one of the characteristics that delineate the particular species. And if you were to try to identify this in a mushroom book or similar kind of handbook, that's one of the characteristics they would mention in here, and these small spine-like structures sticking out on the top. So if we cut this in half, we're going to find it to be quite white inside. And this is indicative of a puffball that is not mature yet. The white area that you see inside here is where the spores will eventually be produced. And as the spores are produced, this color will change, because the spores in mass of this particular puffball are kind of a dark brown to a gray brown. And that's when they become quite powdery, and that small hole will develop in the top, as like I mentioned a little bit earlier. And then just about anything that comes along that contacts it, even like a raindrop, will cause the spores to be expulsed out through the top and then wind disseminated to new areas. Okay, this is a fully mature puffball. And one way in which the spores are released and escape from the inside is through this small opening at the top called an ostiole. And if you could imagine a raindrop hitting that, or perhaps an animal, including the human, coming up and impacting against it, you'd see this kind of action. See the spores puffing out, hopefully. And if one looks at the interior, you would find that the entire interior portion, okay, is now turned into a spore mass. And this is the spore mass that you see right there. Very powdery and lends itself very well for wind dissemination of the spores.